Am I the asshole for calling my friend an idiot because he wants a maternity test? My friend Dan recently found out he might be a father. I say might because the girl he's been having an on and off relationship with, Kara, is pregnant and he's not sure if he's the dad. She offered to get a paternity test once the baby is born and doesn't expect any kind of support until he finds out if the baby is his. He's on board with that and appreciates that she's not pushing him into fatherhood if the baby isn't his. The issue is that when he was talking to me about it, he also said he wants to get a maternity test done to make sure the baby is hers. Kara is visibly pregnant. We know she's pregnant because she did a maternity photo shoot and posted it on social media. So it's obvious she's not faking being pregnant. We've both seen her in person too, and she's most definitely pregnant. However, Dan believes that the baby inside of her might not be hers. I tried to explain to him that's not how biology works, and unless she got an embryo implanted in her, then she's definitely the mother. She's a waitress and works for minimum wage plus tips, so I doubt she has the money to afford an embryo implantation. Plus, it's ridiculous to think that she'd do all that to just baby trap a guy who is unemployed and living with his parents at 32. Plus, he's never donated sperm. He's genuinely convinced that the baby might not biologically be hers, despite not only me and all our other friends explaining that's not how baby/pregnancy works. But he's still insisting on a maternity test and told me that I was being ridiculous, that I'm the one who doesn't understand biology, despite me studying to be an autopsy pathologist, which has required literal years of biology classes. I got fed up and called him a senseless idiot and told him to call me when he got his head screwed back on straight. Ever since then, he's been spamming my phone and has gotten a couple of our friends to spam me as well, telling me I'm being insensitive and that he's just stressed about possibly being a dad. So am I the a-hole for calling my friend an idiot? No, you're not the a-hole for calling your friend an idiot, because I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a secret that I'm only gonna tell you. Everybody else, that guy's a idiot. No, seriously, like it'd be one thing if he was 16, 18, hell, 21. You should know how babies work by then, but you know, whatever. 32, and you don't know how kids are made? First of all, what we all need to do as a society is make sure that he don't procreate, because what we don't need is him making more people. Like, society don't need another one of him. You're 32 and you don't know where babies come from. That's a you problem. It ain't the school system. It ain't your mama failing you. They may have failed you at some point, but at 32, fam, that's on you, especially if you've been having sex. So no, you are not the a-hole, your friend is, and if he can't just admit that he's wrong, and maybe it's a little embarrassing and just get over it, then that's a him problem, not a you problem. Hopefully this is not the hill he chooses to die on when it comes to your friendship, but it sounds like you're dealing with a different level of stupid, and I can't let my hopes get up, so you shouldn't either. So no, you are not the a-hole he is, and hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. Am I the asshole for refusing to give in to my Disney-obsessed adult sister? My niece just turned 5 and we got her a Magic Mixie. My sister Elsa has a strict Disney toy-only policy and literally gives us lists of acceptable Disney-only toys, but that's not what my niece wanted. She's been obsessed with getting a Magic Mixie since her friend got one. My brother-in-law doesn't care and gets her other stuff all the time. So I text him and he said that it was okay to not stick to the list since the grandparents got her stuff that wasn't Disney-related. He said that he wants his daughter to branch out more and to ignore the list. But Elsa, his wife, is a Disney adult. Everything has to be Disney-related. Before my niece was born, Elsa sent out a Facebook post and a family-wide email saying that anything without a Disney character on it, toys, clothes, bedding, furniture, these things would not be donated. They would only be thrown out. We've never actually sent my niece a gift at all because we knew Elsa would throw it away. Disney is her aesthetic and she'll throw things away in front of people who gift them to her if they're not plastered with the cartoon characters. Back to the story. At her birthday party, my niece opened the Magic Mixie and went bananas. Elsa didn't say anything other than a neutral, how cute, and then moved on to something else. After the party was over, Elsa went apeshit and said it's my fault she has to throw her kid's toy away. Apparently, she and my brother-in-law got into a big fight when she tried to throw it out during the birthday party. She also tried to give it to several other parents at the party. Jesus. The moms from our mom group called her insensitive that she tried to get rid of a toy her kid was so excited about and asked if she was going to do that with their gifts. My mom called me later and said that I was a huge a-hole for not sticking to what Elsa wanted and making her anxious about the presents. Because I guess after the party, her mom group of friends got pissed at her when they found out she throws gifts away. So she and the niece are uninvited from a lot of spring activities. Am I the a-hole here? No, you are not the a-hole. What we are watching is when someone who is doing something that is terrible has to suffer the consequences. See, it's cute and okay at first when the kid is 1, 2, and 3. She's gotten away with it for a long time, even though she was rude, disrespectful, inconsiderate, and a little crazy. People let her get away with that because either they didn't know or because husband was putting up with it. Looks like her husband is tired of this and now the child is old enough to speak for itself and nobody is going with this BS. It's not an aesthetic, it's an obsession. It has nothing to do with her daughter, it has everything to do with her. And to be honest, honest, she needs some psychological help. And so yes, she is the a-hole, not you. And I would not apologize because that is reinforcing bad behavior. And eventually your niece is going to get sick of this and she needs to face all of these people who she's offended head on and realize that she is the one in the wrong. You backing up her insanity by apologizing is not going to help anyone. So no, you are not the a-hole, she is. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. Bah! Am I the asshole for not putting my husband's children in my will? My husband Jack and I married later in life. We were both in our 50s. It was a second marriage for both of us. He has 3 children. I don't have any biological children, but I'm still very close to my former stepson, Thomas, that I helped raise. We were both very well off financially. Jack more than me. Jack owned his own business and was upfront that he intended that business to be left to his children. We signed a prenup before our wedding that basically said we each get to keep what we brought into the marriage. We kept our finances separate, though we both contributed to a joint account for household expenses, which we split 50-50. When we did our wills at this time, Jack left everything to his children and I left mine to Thomas. We were both aware of what the other had done and we were fine with it. Jack's business went under about 4 years ago. He was desperate to keep the business going and poured all his savings into it. The business had been his grandfather's and then his father's, and he was determined to be able to hand it down to his children. He ended up losing almost everything. He was completely devastated. Standard of living wise, not much changed except that I am paying 100% of household expenses. I love him and I'm fine with this. I had a health scare about a month ago when I realized that if I died, Jack would be left with nothing as my will gives everything I own to Thomas. I told Jack that I was planning to change my will. My plan was to put 1/3 of my assets into a trust for Thomas's children. He has 2 currently that both call me Nana, and 1/3 in a trust for Jack. I would set it up so that Jack would receive a generous monthly check, but after he died, the assets in the trust would go to Thomas. I did it that way because I want Jack taken care of while he was alive, but after that I wanted to go to Thomas, not Jack's kids. Jack is furious that his children aren't going to receive anything. He kept pointing out that I have 3 stepchildren, not just one former one. Why are his kids getting nothing and Thomas everything? I should say that by the time we got together, Jack's children were all grown. One already had a child of their own and one was married. Other than the occasional holiday, I've never lived with Jack's kids, and while he is not mine biologically, Thomas is my son in every way that counts. While I get along with Jack's kids, we are not close at all. Jack is threatening to leave me over this. He keeps saying that if I don't care about his kids, that means I don't care about him. I've told him that is nonsense and that I don't respond well to ultimatum. We had planned to leave our assets separately before we were ever married, but now that he doesn't have money, suddenly he wants to leave my money to his kids? Am I the a-hole for not wanting this? You are not the a-hole, and you already said everything that I could say. When he was up and had more money than you, he was determined that the legacy he built be left to his children. You are entitled to make the exact same decisions if you choose to. You're right. He's only doing this because he can't leave anything to his kid. And I get it. Why not fight for them to get something if you can? But after you draw your line and you say no, that should be the end of it. You're going to make sure that you keep paying for him to be fine until the day that he dies. That's more than what anybody can ask for. It's beautiful. It's lovely. It's so caring and unselfish. That is something that we should all aspire to do for ourselves and someone else. It's a beautiful gift to give someone. He is in the wrong. You are not the a-hole, and you should be allowed to make whatever financial decisions you choose to make. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. Am I the asshole for refusing to apologize to my mother-in-law after she walked into my house and saw me in my underwear? This sounds like the beginning of a certain type of movie to me. This happened yesterday at 9 in the morning. Our 33-year-old female was in the kitchen eating breakfast wearing my regular underwear. Suddenly, I heard gasping sounds coming towards me. I turned and saw my mother and sister-in-law yelling about what I was wearing. I was in utter shock and froze in my seat. My husband was asleep at the time and he must have heard his mother and sister scream because he ran downstairs asking what was going on. His mom started ranting loudly about what an inappropriate scene she and her daughter saw. I'm still sitting in shock when my husband started yelling at me to go put something on quickly. I went upstairs while his mom kept yelling after me, calling me shameless and inappropriate, and I then heard my husband say it won't happen again. I was so mad. I put a coat on and went downstairs and started arguing with my mother-in-law again. I told her that she shouldn't have come over without notice, but turns out my husband told her to come over at 9 to discuss a family crisis. My mother-in-law said I was in the wrong for walking around half naked knowing she has a key and might show up at any minute. I told her it's my home and she said it's her son's home too. We argued and my husband told me to knock it off and apologize. But I refused and went back upstairs. Then after his mom and sister left, he called me childish and inappropriate. I tried to explain my side, but he said what's done is done and he promised his mom that I will apologize. But I told him I will never apologize and she's gonna have to wait decades for that one. He got upset and called me disrespectful towards my guests. And my mother-in-law was technically a guest, so am I the a-hole here? Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. You are not the a-hole in this situation. First of all, the only person that's really in the wrong in this situation is your husband. He made plans without telling you, and while it was an emergency and called everybody at the last minute, there was no way for you to know that you had company on the way. And even if company has a key, company shouldn't be using that key unless it's actually an emergency that they're responding to. You don't just walk into my house without knocking first. I don't give a damn if I gave you a key or not, because the key is not for you to come and go as you please, because you don't live here. You are not wrong. You had every right to be walking around in your underwear in your own home. What are they expecting you to do? Stay fully clothed unless you're in your bathroom or in your bedroom, and even though 99% of the time you and your husband are the only people there? Or are you supposed to be going to walk around the house knocking on doors or peeking around corners, even though, again, 99% of the time it was only you and your husband there? Now, your mother-in-law is delusional. She makes no sense, and I also don't understand why she's so angry about you being in your underwear in your home. Like, I get it. It's an embarrassing situation for everybody, but that's all it is. It's not disrespectful. We didn't have to escalate to this place. And if your husband can't see why all of this is an issue and can't check his own mother, then you have a bigger problem than are you the a-hole in this situation. You are in the right 100%. And you need to think about if these are the kind of people that you want to be family with. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. But am I the asshole for not doing anything when my new wife broke into my daughter's laptop and read her novel, then destroyed it? I've been married to my wife, Hannah, who's a 36-year-old female, for 2 years. She and my daughter, Morgan, a 16-year-old female, don't have a mother-daughter relationship. To be completely transparent here, they both fight often and just don't get along. Morgan used to spend most of her time at her mom's, but now is staying with us for school. I remember Hannah telling me about a novel Morgan was writing on her laptop. She admitted to sneaking and looking at it without Morgan's knowledge, but she appraised her writing style and storytelling, so I thought that was a positive thing. Yesterday, I got back home and found Morgan and her mom yelling at Hannah. I asked what was happening, and Morgan told me my wife Hannah said that Morgan had created a character in the novel using her description and name and making her the villain. Not only that, but she wrote bad words about her. Morgan argued that it was just a character and Hannah had no business snooping on her laptop to begin with. Hannah broke down crying after my ex threatened her. I just watched the three of them fight and did nothing nor said a single word. I stepped out for a minute to get fresh air, and moments later, Hannah unloaded on me about how I should have defended her in the argument instead of acting so cowardly. Morgan and her mom also said that I should have done something when Hannah decided to snoop, then delete Morgan's months of hard work. It just became too much with three of them berating me and yelling in my face. Morgan went home with her mom and she was crying and refused to speak to me, and Hannah checked into a hotel also refusing to speak to me. The texts from both sides keep coming in, both telling me I should have done something and should have took their side in the argument. I just had to stay out of this one. I was on my feet the entire week working. Both mental and physical health were down the drain, and I'm tired of them fighting all the time and then blaming me for my actions or lack of. Both are expecting me to get involved and do something to fix this, but I haven't done anything yet. Am I the asshole for not getting involved? First of all, yes, you are the a-hole. Your new wife broke into your daughter's laptop, read her novel, and then destroyed it because she didn't like what she wrote. Your wife, Hannah, is a 36-year-old grown-ass woman destroying the work of a 16-year-old because she can't handle the actions of a fictional character. If that doesn't sound like a problem to you, sir, then you haven't been paying attention to anything going on here. Yes, your daughter was completely right, and her mother was completely right. How dare she snoop through her things? Because number one, you're not her mom. You're not her caregiver. What are you doing going through her stuff? She is a teenager. And you as a father should have checked at the beginning with, like, why are you digging through my daughter's, and what are you doing? And then to destroy something, not because she did something wrong, not because she did something nasty, but because she was expressing herself through her art and your new wife just didn't like it? Yeah, that's a problem and you should check that. You are the a-hole here. You need to man up, acquire some testicular fortitude, and tell this woman how wrong she is and apologize to your ex-wife and your daughter. And if she's that goddamn crazy, you probably need to start looking for a new woman. I'm just saying. But you checking out is not going to solve any of your problems, and if you can't check in, you need help. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I am Joe Stone. Am I the asshole for refusing to sign anything while my eyes are blindfolded? Ever since I got out of the hospital for chronic problems, my husband has been introducing me to some games every evening. One game used to be about doing things while my eyes were blindfolded, involving puzzles, Rubik's Cubes, shaped objects, etc. We take turns to do it just for entertainment. Just a couple of days ago, he's been trying to get me to sign papers while wearing a blindfold. I refuse to do it because he never lets me take a look at what I'm signing, neither before or after. He says that he was just trying to see if I could leave the same signature every time I sign, but I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. I told him I don't want to play this game unless and until he shows me the papers first. He says, never mind them and stop bringing it up. Last night, he tried to convince me to give it a try and even volunteered to go first. I asked if he was going to show me what I was going to sign, and he made a face and said, no, it's the rules, and I should respect them. I refused, and he kept going on about how I kept acting worried and suspicious for no reason. No, he's being suspicious. He said I clearly don't trust him, and he was hurt by finding that out now after everything we've been through. We had an argument and I told him to drop it and to not bring it up again, period. He was mad despite saying it was no big deal. He was obviously upset with me and kept talking about how I don't trust him and that I was out of line to assume or suspect anything from him like this. I might be paranoid, but I couldn't help it. I do think I was the a-hole to him after he stood by my side when my own family didn't even visit. Am I the a-hole? Just because a man was there for you when you needed him does not mean that you have to relinquish all of your goddamn common sense. Trust and love does not mean that I have to stop thinking in order to let you manipulate me into doing something that I don't want to do. You were absolutely right. You shouldn't be signing any paperwork that you can't read first, and your husband is acting fucking weird. I don't know if he got you signing divorce papers, life insurance policies, or what, but I would be concerned and I would do some digging. This sounds like the beginning of a bad Lifetime episode, or first 48, and if he keeps bringing it up, there's something going on here. That's all I'm gonna say. You should be concerned, you should be worried, and if he continues, then I would do some snooping and figure out exactly what papers he wants you to sign. But no, you are not the a-hole, he is. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and my podcast. I'm Joe Stone. Bah. Am I the asshole for threatening my husband to make him pay back the $6,000 he stole from me to buy golf clubs? I'm a nurse and have been working more hours for the past 6 months to be able to save money to fix the ceiling in our house. I've saved up to $8,000 in my account, and since my husband hasn't worked since 2020, I'm trying to balance rent and utility payments. My husband is a golf enthusiast, and so are his friends. Only difference is that all his friends are well off and they can afford expensive golfing gear and trips. They mentioned wanting to go on a golfing trip next week and invited my husband, but he initially refused, but complained about how his friends bought fancy golfing gear while all he has is old gear. He asked if I could lend him $6,000 so he could buy a set of golfing clubs, but I refused because $6,000 for a set of clubs is crazy expensive, especially for someone who doesn't work. He got upset and accused me of holding his employment over his head, which he couldn't help. Anyway, I thought we were over this argument, but I had discovered that he had pulled the $6,000 out of my account and purchased a set behind my back. I went home and exploded on him. He swore he'd return the money once he gets back from his trip, but I told him he had no right to take the money and spend it on a set of golf clubs while the ceiling needs fixing. He said that the ceiling doesn't require $6,000 either, but the kid's room was affected too. I demanded that he return the set or pay me the $6,000 right then and there. He told me I was being unfair to him and that he's feeling stuck because his friends can afford to buy whatever, because they have jobs, while he was being yelled at for wanting something for himself for once. I told him to get a job and to buy himself whatever he wanted. He tried to tell me he'll pay me when he finds a job, which is after he gets back from his trip, but I refused. He kept begging me to let him go on a trip and we'll figure it out later, but I said no. If it wasn't for something as important as the ceiling, I would have maybe waited, but he's saying I'm abusive and controlling his life. Am I the a-hole? Look, ma'am, do not let this man gaslight you into believing you were the bad guy in the situation. Not only have you been holding everything down by yourself, you have been putting in overtime in order to take care of your family to the best of your ability. You have problems with your roof and you saved up your money to fix it. You were a responsible adult. I'm pretty sure there are many times that there were things that you wanted to buy that you put to the side simply because you knew that you had to save up to take care of your family in the correct way. And your husband is over here maxing and relaxing and blowing bands on golfing equipment when he ain't got a job. And apparently him looking cool with his friends and going on a trip is more important than finding one. And I don't understand how this is lending him money and not just giving it to him because he hasn't had a job for 2 years, but all of a sudden when he need to pay you back for these golf clubs, he could be able to find a job pretty easily as soon as he get back from the trip. So we gotta ask ourselves, what the you been doing for 2 years? Like, oh, now you can find a job. Well, I'm gonna need you to clock me my money back. So no, you are absolutely right. He is the a-hole. You are not in this situation. And make sure you hit that follow button, subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. I'm Joe Stone. But am I the asshole for making my stepson walk home on his engagement night after his disgusting behavior? My stepson, Rowan, a 23-year-old male, just got engaged to his fiancée. She comes from a highly conservative family and they both won't live together till marriage. They're both on great terms and I have to say her parents are a bit much. So the engagement party was held at a restaurant. I drove my wife, Rowan, and his best friend, Jack, there because Rowan's car needed some work. Things went quite well and the party ended and everyone went home. On the way back, I had to stop by the store so I could grab something for our 16-year-old son. Rowan and Jack kept laughing when this young lady walked towards us because her car was parked next to mine in the parking lot. Rowan kept trying to speak to her while she was trying to load her stuff in the car. He and Jack kept throwing words at her and she seemed annoyed. Jack then said, "Hey, he just wants to look at that ass." Then Rowan said, "Let me see it jiggle, baby." I was appalled. I told them to both knock it off, but then Rowan sarcastically replied, "Relax, I was just giving her a compliment. I bet she won't get many of those too often." The lady got in her car and I started arguing with him about his behavior and shamed him for acting like this on his own engagement night. He argued back saying something about my car and I lost it. I told him to get out immediately. Jack got involved, so I kicked him out too. My wife got back and started engaging in the argument, saying I can't let her son walk home from his engagement party. I replied that her son can't be harassing other women on the way back from his engagement party, but she kept defending him. I told her to either stay or get in the car. She did, and I drove off. Rowan didn't come home and my wife gave me hell for it. We later found out that he was staying at one of his guy's friend's place. From what I understand, he's pissed at me and refusing to see me. My wife said it was my fault. She says that I escalated the situation over something stupid that boys do all the time. I told her that he can't do this while in my car, but she took it as in I was holding it over his head. She said I should have never made him walk the night of his engagement and demanded that I apologize to him. Am I the a-hole? Sir, see, this is the thing. I don't even know what a woman wants, and this is the perfect example. You try to be an ally, right? You fight against the patriarchy. You shame your stepson for all the negative he's done for harassing this young woman while she's just trying to get in her car. And your wife comes out and takes his side completely. Now, I get it, she wasn't there, but goddamn. You can't win for losing. But no, you were not the a-hole in this situation, and I completely applaud you for standing by your character and your principles and not allowing this young man to just harass this woman and think that it's okay. They were completely in the wrong, and while it may have been funny to and his friend Jack, they don't know how they made this woman feel. She could have been afraid. She could have been annoyed. That could have been the worst part of her day. It could have depressed her. You don't know what she's going through, and what she didn't deserve and what she didn't need is two men harassing her for nothing. She deserved better as a human being, and it takes good men standing up and checking other men when they do these kinds of things to make it uncool, unpopular, and for them to understand it is not the behavior that a man should exhibit, especially not one that's getting ready to get married. So no, you did the right thing. If Rowan didn't want to walk home, he shouldn't have been talking shit. So hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone.